Hey, everybody, and welcome back again this week for the Loud Thumbs Limited Series podcast. More Halo, episode 5. It's called The Reckoning. And the first thing I want to start with, before we even get into the episode, guys, I have to make it very well known how shitty the Paramount Plus app is. We literally got off work, come home, watch the episode. It took over 10 minutes to get it started, literally to get the app to load and to play the episode. We had to reboot our Fire Cube after the 4th try. And then finally we had a working, episode. But that's barely working is barely the right response, right?
Yeah, it's
for
unacceptable.
It's completely unacceptable. I tweeted at Paramount Plus and they respond back with, it sounds like you got a problem that our IT department needs to look into. And I posted a video of my TV going through the most fucked up glitches and audio fuck ups and pauses and everything. It's like it can't buffer, and it really ruins the experience of watching the show. 100%. Now I'm going to rate the show with that not in, mind, but it's still a factor. Like, they put it on a shitty service. This is the shittiest streaming service I have ever used.
And I have said that from the get-go. Why Paramount Plus? This is the worst streaming service.
Yeah.
You can never watch anything straight through. It's always like it just can't keep up. It can't buffer. And it is constantly when people talk and you're like, what?
If it wasn't for subtitles,
we would have no idea.
Yeah, this episode, I would have had no clue what was going on.
Yeah.
It finally started working about 40 minutes into the episode.
The way through the episode.
It finally smoothed out. It took that long for it to buffer to the point where it worked.
And it still wasn't perfect.
And it wasn't perfect still. And we haven't talked about this so much, but the first episode, we couldn't watch it on launch day.
Mm-mm.
We couldn't watch the launch episode. We had to wait 2 days before it finally functioned because it was down and it was having problems. It's uncalled for something you pay for.
Mm-hmm.
If it was free, we wouldn't be even discussing it right now. It'd be brought up, but then that would be it. But I wanted to take a few minutes and mention it because the other factor about it is I'm almost not paying for this because I had a birthday deal come through perfectly timed. I have a birthday in February, late February, and Halo started the beginning of March, and it was like great timing. So I'm getting it for like $2 a month. I'm paying $1.99. I think I got 2 or 3 months for that price for my birthday, and I am canceling it as soon as Halo's over.
Yep.
This is going to be the service that I will pay for to watch Halo, and that is it, because it is dog shit. It is one of the worst streaming service I have ever used. And that's saying a whole lot because I've used a lot of streaming services and a lot of them are not good, but this one is the worst. And it has my favorite, wearing my Halo shirt today. It has my favorite video game franchise on it. And I am forced to go through this nightmare. And then, by the way, guys, it is not our internet. I pay for a gigabit internet connection here. Our Wi-Fi runs at over 400 megabits per second. It is not our equipment and it is not our internet.
No. Everything else runs perfect. Netflix, never have a problem. Disney Plus can be a little sluggish at times, but that's Disney Plus. Hulu, Peacock TV, HBO Max, like they all run perfect. Like we watch Harry Potter every night before bed and it's perfect.
4K, all of it works.
Stupid Paramount Plus.
Yeah, it is terrible. And if you guys are having problems like this, I'd like to know too. I'm curious. I'm probably going to send something to the Paramount Plus because they did tweet back at me, like I said, and just see what they want to do about it. But at this point, I don't think they're going to do shit other than be like, oh, well, it's probably your fault.
Probably you.
Anyway, I needed to get that off my chest because it made for a terrible beginning of hoping we are going to get into some better shit with the Halo show. And it started off really, really poor with just the streaming service. So into the episode now. We're 5 minutes into the podcast and I'm done complaining. we're both done complaining about Paramount Plus for this episode. The episode's called The Reckoning, like we said, and it more or less right back where we started from, or ended from in episode 4. Another flashback in the beginning again. We get to see baby Chief, you know, being like kidnapped and whatever. But the that comes a little bit later. That's another flashback. But the first flashback we see is him like saving a little kid from falling off of like this really rickety ass bridge at a school. It's like, I don't understand. It was like supposed to be like a tree fort or something.
Kind of, I think, like one of those like bridges you can walk across, but like the middle of it was missing.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it was.
Yeah, some bully kid was like, "What are you scared?" And like another kid fell off the side, and then Baby John saves him and pulls him up, and Baby John, and you see Halsey. She's kind of doing a tour of this area, and she sees John save this kid, and everybody's cheering him on, and John, and all this and stuff. I'm kind of sick of seeing these flashbacks, to be honest. We get the gist. She stole him for a reason. She saw something in him. She kidnapped him or whatever for a reason. And just give us one overall background thing, but there's so many of these flashbacks coming. What are your thoughts on the flashbacks?
I don't like them.
Same then?
Like, yeah, there's no point to them. Like, give it to us once. We know what's happening. We can pick up what's gonna, what has happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to keep seeing it every episode. Like,
yeah.
Honestly, at this point, I just feel like every episode is a repeat of the episode before it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not moving forward.
Yeah. I feel like what they should have done with these is kind of what like Marvel had done with parts of like with Coulson, where they would show things like you could see what Coulson did if you watched like a piece of an internet ad.
Okay.
Like you saw why he, went to Thor's hammer and all these little things and all these little adventures he kind of went on. You didn't need to know them.
Right.
You just knew Coulson was kind of an underground badass, but he didn't really show off about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd see him be a badass in some of these things that they put out. There was these shorts that were online only.
Yeah.
I think they should have done something like that with these flashbacks for people who wanted to see more of that kind of stuff. Like put them out like in between the episodes, put them out on like a Monday morning or something.
Yeah. Like somewhere just to kind of keep you hooked up.
Yeah. Maybe like a 5-minute thing of like, the background of John 117, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you could have checked it out, watched it if you wanted to, probably on something that might function better than Paramount Plus.
Please.
And you'd be filled in if you wanted to watch it. Otherwise you didn't need to. And it changed nothing in the story, because that's kind of how the Marvel movies and stuff did it too. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to see them, but when you did, you got a little bit more of something, but nothing that everybody needed to see.
Yeah. And it didn't take away from the other movies.
Right. Exactly. And I feel like that's something that they just needed to do. These flashbacks are just so often now. So anyway,
it's just so repetitive, and it makes it boring to see the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah, we get it. She saw something in him.
Yeah.
That's all we need to know.
Move on.
Let us fill in what she saw in him. Let us as the viewers do that. I don't need to see him as a little kid saving another little kid.
Mm-mm.
We get it. Like, he's a hero. Like, do we need to know everything about why, Spider-Man became a hero? And no, we know he's a hero. Like, he's whatever. Anyway,
there's too much hand holding.
There's a lot of hand holding
from the show to the viewer. It's like, I want to take you on a certain specific path, and we have to follow this path. So I'm going to hold your hand every step of the way. And it's like, I don't need that. Like, I'm smarter than that. I'm not stupid.
That's a good way to put it. There is a lot of hand holding in the storytelling. So then we have like a flashback to where we are now. They're in, I think they went to Kaquan and Soren right after the intro.
Yeah.
And
again, nothing new.
No, he like,
there was no point to that in the show either.
Yeah. He like puts her on a motorcycle and like handcuffs her to it because the motorcycle's broke down now. And then he's like gonna leave, and there's like a big like back and forth, and they're like, I don't like you, and I don't like you either, screw you. And then he leaves her handcuffed, and she somehow gets free. Bunches of rocks, keeps just bashing the handcuffs with rocks until it breaks a piece of the motorcycle off. It was just so, I didn't like the scene at all. She was like being a very big child, screaming like when it wouldn't work, like when she couldn't get off of the motorcycle or whatever. it was just, I didn't like it at all. Like, I was just like, okay, they're just making her out to be this super big childlike character. So that was a little bit annoying. I'm still not a fan of Soren and Quan. Like, I thought I was going to be in the beginning, because that's where they start you with, is Quan, and I'm not. Like, they just need to do something there. And then we go to Chief, and Kai and everybody are all together now. Kai has told Miranda that she has to leave to go rejoin Chief on the ground, because they have landed in a Pelican. And then they just kind of start the road of connecting Silver Team back to Chief.
Right.
Which is like, finally, okay, good. We finally see, like, Kai puts her helmet on, and Chief kind of sees her, that she has her red hair. And Cortana's like, I like that color on her, that sort of stuff. And then they're just more of okay, let's see what happens with the team now. They're going to kind of work together, or, what's happening. There was the conversation between Kai and it's Vanek, from what I understand now. They finally said his name more this episode.
More clearly.
I thought it was Vanak.
We read it.
We did. Yeah, I did read it. I thought it was Vanak, but it's Vanek from everything I've heard them say anyway. He and Kai are talking while Riz is I think it's Riz anyway, is giving a speech to everybody about what their plans are to do here. And they start talking about basically the pellet, but she doesn't really say it. She's like, do you ever wonder why you don't
wonder?
Yeah. You ever wonder why you don't wonder why? And he's like, you ever wonder why you ask me dumbass questions like that? And, he's being the tough guy, like always, but you could see she got him thinking. Like, at one point he kind of has that like thought thing. I think at some point there's going to be either a break in the team, where you're going to have the ones that are going to be like, no, why did you take the pellet thing out? And you're going to have the ones that be like, you should have took it out because of this. Kind of like I said in the previous episode, where that part of their humanity needs to be kept intact for them to be, true heroes kind of thing. I feel like some kind of struggle is going to happen like that. But what are your thoughts on what, Vanek and Kai kind of talked about there, and where you think it might go?
I don't know. Kai's in kind of a weird place right now. Like, she's feeling everything for the first time since she's removed her inhibitor. I don't know. To me, I don't feel like it's a super integral part of the show. Like, I don't know.
It will be the first season.
I know. And I got to remind myself of that. Like, this is the first season. We're figuring everybody's story out. I just overall am not like super happy with the show. So it's kind of hard for me to hope and wonder and theorize about what's to come, because I'm like, am I honestly going to watch another season of this? Like, what is there going to be? I mean, I know they've said there's a second season, but how many times does that happen and then it gets canceled? Like, oh, we're not making this anymore.
I don't see that happening with this guy.
I just, I don't know. There's got to be more than what I've been getting, or I'm just going to be like, sorry, you're on your own.
Oh, I get it. It's not going to go anywhere. It's definitely going to stick around, but it's going to be, I think, slow, because everything has still been pretty slow, and we'll continue to see if they ramp it up anymore or not. They got to get to a Halo quickly, because the show is called Halo. Yeah. And they still have yet to find a Halo or do anything with a Halo. There's still this struggle with these artifacts and whatnot. So on to the artifact part of it all, where Halsey basically tells Chief, don't touch it, because the other artifact, had this effect on you. This one, we don't know what would happen. It could be, death,
more, because it's so much bigger.
Yeah, it's way bigger. So they're all kind of doing their, scientific things to it. And they brought all the equipment in. They're looking at it, and like the doctor guy, a Dunn or Andon or something. Aiden, is that it?
Adun.
Yeah, it's Adun. Yeah. I know, because I was reading the subtitles because I couldn't listen. And he's doing some kind of weird stuff to it. And then you have
a laser.
Yeah, there's like a laser toward it or whatever. And while that's happening, you have Commander Keyes or Captain Keyes, and you have Miranda, his daughter, are kind of getting into it. Like, he is ordered her to stop working on the project. He doesn't want her attached to it in any way anymore because the admiral has called in and kind of, I don't know, threw her weight around a little bit, right? In that scene when she calls in and tells Miranda,
she tells Halsey, like,
or Halsey, not Miranda,
you're not doing anything you said.
Yeah.
You're basically putting everyone in danger. You need to stop. And then Halsey throws out the blackmail card of like, oh, what will Admiral so-and-so think?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh.
Right.
And then Captain Keyes says he doesn't want Miranda involved because her hands are clean.
Yep.
So basically,
as of right now, her hands are clean.
Off. That's what they want to do anyway.
Yeah. So he tells her to quit, and she says, what are you doing? What's this have to do with, with me or whatever? And he's like, I'm trying to protect you. And she's like, no, I don't think this has anything to do with me. I think it has everything to do with you. And then she's like, what does she have over you? Basically, what does Halsey have over?
Yeah. What do they have on you?
Yeah. And he doesn't answer her. He's just like, straight up, like, you will do this. This is an order. And she's pretty upset. And she's like, yes, sir. Done. So we'll see what comes from that. But then they go back down into the whole artifact situation, and they're still doing their whole thing. I guess before that, though, Chief does run into Kai because he saw her with the hair and whatnot. And, he's looking all badass. He's got his helmet on and whatnot. He walks up to her and he pops his helmet off. Boom.
He's
helmet
like,
off.
Take your helmet off.
And he's like, take your helmet off. And it's like, here we go.
No, why are you taking your helmet off?
Theme of the show. I got to take your helmet off so I can see your hair, I guess, whatever. And then he's like, when'd you remove your pellet? And she's like, right after I saw you remove yours. And he's like, you're grounded. He's like, you're a danger. You're a danger because, you haven't been reprocessed since your pellet's been removed and whatnot. And then she calls him out and was like, well, neither of you, da, 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 da. And he's not having it, tells her she's grounded, and he walks away. And Cortana's like, she has a point, Chief. And yeah, she does. Mm-hmm. She's like, you haven't been reassessed since your pellet was removed. And he doesn't really have a whole lot to say. He just basically says, hey, Cortana, do me a favor. And she says, sure, okay. Anything. And he goes, stop talking. I can barely hear myself think. And then you get a little bit of that more hatred of he has for Cortana right now. He's not really loving her. There was a little bit of good banter between them this episode. Like, because in that part, she says the thing, well, if you could hear it, you wouldn't want to, Yes, right after that, it does get funny. There's the one part that is funny. Because, they did have good banter in the game. It's just too new in the show. I know. So I'm just trying to rush things along. Me too. I wish I could, but that's not what they want to do. But yes, there is the one-liner that Heather mentioned that came right after that, where she's like, well, that's a good thing. Cause if you could, what did she say? It's, if you could, you wouldn't want to, or something. You wouldn't want to, if you could, or something like that. Basically, cause there's not a whole lot going on up there is basically what she's saying to him. And then it goes down into the artifact area, and this, like, you think it's the laser that causes it or whatever, but like this really loud noise happens and sends out this big like wave of sound, like blasting shit and everything. And everybody's like holding their ears, and they're on the ground now. And then the thing that's wrapping around the artifact, kind of like glass in a way, it just kind of shatters. Yeah. And it leaves the actual like artifact separated from the rock. Yeah. So now you see the artifact just floating there. It was almost like someone had sealed it in there. Yeah. Because they said that they made mention that it wasn't natural. Right. So it was obviously made. Right. And so it's almost like someone was trying to hide it. Right. Exactly. It's like, why are you going around poking in things? And almost, I'm guessing the laser is what cracked the glass or the ice or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And I think it was encased in that to keep it from sending out whatever signal was getting sent out. Mm-hmm. So it was a way of like just hiding the whole thing. It was like a tomb in a way, because it was buried also. Similar to the other artifact that was like encased in a wall. They had blown part of the wall about, in the first episode. Big chunk of the wall was gone and the artifact was just floating there. Similar to this one, except this one is probably 5 times the size of the other artifact. It's pretty large. It takes 2 Spartans to carry it out when they do that here later. But that whole thing happens, and then we are shown Mackie, who is with her elites, and they're telling her, this is where sure they're on Madrigal at
Mhm.
that point. So they're on the same planet as
They're
Quan.
looking for they're where the first artifact
Yeah,
was.
they're at the original artifact, episode 1 location. And she's like, I know it's not here anymore. And they're trying to tell her, you know, all this stuff. She's kind of feeling around for it. Well, when this whole thing breaks, sends a signal out, she gets like a vision and she's like, I can see where the other artifact is. And you know what's going to happen next. They're all going there because she knows where it's at.
Got me excited.
So they pan back to, or, you know, flashback over to Chief and Silver Team and everybody there. And they're trying to figure out what's going on. And they see the artifact. And then there's like a lot of like conversation and whatnot. Kind of with everyone, like Halsey gets involved with stuff. And then, you know, Keyes is back involved more. Chief, before all that too, Chief had asked, you know, Commander Keyes what he thought about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew that Halsey was lying.
Yeah.
You know, Chief knew all that, but he hadn't directly told Halsey. He trusts Commander Keyes more than he trusts, or Captain Keyes more than he trusts Halsey now. But after the artifact is opened, Chief runs in and he needs answers. He's been asking Cortana for a good chunk of the time, what you know everything about human history, and she's like, yep, and room to spare. You know, has a good line in there. And he's like, well, tell me about my history. And she's like, well, I told you all the history from your planet or whatever was erased. And he's like, yeah, but I'm still here. And then there's a little bit
everything from before the plague was gone. And he's like, but I'm still here.
Yep.
And then he asks about the Spartans program, and he's like, there's no information on it. And then that makes him go find the artifact, the big one.
Yeah.
And then he touches it.
Yep. He grabs it and she's like, no, Chief, it could kill you. And his eyes like get all weird. Like I'm trying to figure out what his eyes do. Like it feels like, in a way they look like computer looking.
Kind of like he's absorbing all of this information.
Yeah. Some being downloaded.
Yeah. And it's like an energy shock kind of.
Yeah. And that's when he has the mega flashback of seeing himself replaced with something, like, which we all know if we're following Halo at anything, or have followed any of Halo in the past, is a clone of him was given to his parents. Unbeknownst to them, he was taken. And he sees all this. He sees Halsey abduct him, you know, a bunch of, you know, soldiers come in and take him, and she like gives him a shot in the arm, puts him to sleep. And he lets go of the artifact at that point. And Halsey comes in and sees him and he says to her, you kidnapped me. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I know you have a lot of questions. We need to get the artifact back to Reach before the elites show up. And
we'll talk about it when we get there.
Yeah.
And he is not having it.
He would have killed her.
Oh, yeah.
He lunges at her and she just yells, Cortana. And Cortana shuts down his neural network. So she shuts his brain off.
He just falls like a brick right on the ground.
And his eyes are all white and shit. Like his eyes rolled back in his head and stuff. And then, you know, later he does wake up, like, what's going on? You know, what's going on, whatever. And he kind of, you know, goes through where is she? I can't tell you that. Cortana's kind of hiding where Halsey is at this point because we're pretty sure what he's going to do to her.
He's going to go kick her ass.
She's like, you weren't making the greatest decisions and so on and so forth. So I can't tell you all that. But we do get another kickback over to Quan, and Soren shows up though first. Same area where he left Quan. She's nowhere to be found. He's looking around. He kind of does a little bit of walking while she's like buried herself down in the sand and like hidden herself. And he shows up in like a gator, like some sort of an ATV of some kind. And she kind of gets out of the sand and like tases him in the back of the neck.
And I'm like, why? Like
they don't like each other, clearly.
I mean, I know they don't like each other, but
we don't like watching them either.
I don't like watching them. Like, why did I need to see the whole 10 minutes that they had of them in the whole episode? I didn't need.
Yeah, no, it could have been
just been cut out.
Cooler shit could have happened.
Yeah, a lot more cooler shit could have happened.
Yeah. So yeah, she tases him, then she grabs his cool golden gun and like is aiming like she's gonna shoot him, and then like we get a cut, and then it goes back to, you know, a different part of the episode. So he anyway, like we have no clue what's going to happen now because you don't see any more of them the rest of the episode. But it cuts back to Chief and Silver Team, and all of a sudden we have incoming. You know, Cortana says slip space breach, slip space rupture detected is, you know, right from the fucking video games, which is great. And then they that's when the episode gets good. Like it finally gets good.
We had a little bit of action in this one.
Yeah. So yeah, go for it, because you've been dying for some action. So
I was so happy. Like I saw the ships coming and I was like, yes, there's going to be fighting.
A lot of Banshees showed up.
There was a lot of Banshees. And then you're like, oh, are we going to get to see the grunts? And I think there were a few, but we didn't hear any of them.
A grunt drove a warthog.
Oh, yes. The grunt drove the warthog. That's right. And then he swiftly got killed. By Chief. There were lots of jackals.
Tons of jackals. Shields and no shields. They were all there.
I was super happy because we did get to see, you know, action and they were fighting. A little myth that most of the time Chief was driving a warthog, but I'll take what I can get at this point. Like at least there was shooting, there was action, there was people fighting, there were enemies getting killed.
There was a war.
There was war. It wasn't just talking.
No, we finally get the Covenant versus the UNSC sort of battles we saw in the games. A lot of the budget, I think, went into this particular part of the show. We'll see how much more we get of it, but this felt very high budget for sure. I mean, when it all kicked off, it was one of the moments where Chief walks out of the area where the artifact was at, and it's like, now what do we? The mission is get the artifact to Halsey. That's the artifact, or that's the mission. And Miranda's in the ship with Kai right now because she's been grounded, and Kai's like, you know, we got to get out of here. And she's like, no, we need to stay here in case they need us, because all the other ships are all like Pillar of Autumn size ships. They're enormous. So they can't use them to gain the artifact. They need to use like a Pelican or something, or just a smaller style ship. So she stays on the ground in her Pelican and tells Kai to go join the fight. You know, she's like, go join the fight. And Kai's like, yes, ma'am. And she gets out there.
Like, I'm gone.
She gets her sniper gun out and she is ready to go. And she goes out there and she starts taking names. Like she's sniping the shit out of people. And, you know, Banshees, she's taking Banshees out from the sky, which is great. We cut to Chief, and Chief is with, you know, Vanek and Riz, and they're carrying the artifact. They throw it in the back of the warthog. One of them gets on the turret. One of them gets in with Chief. One of them drives, and Chief is running now. Like, and it was cool as shit because I mean, we got a full bore pedal to the metal warthog, and Chief is just running beside it. Like, it was cool as hell.
It was awesome.
And they're just running and gunning, doing their thing. But there is the point, which is a little bit further in. There's been some fighting going on. There's been some shooting and killing and grunts seen and whatnot. And a brute drops from a ship. And I was like, oh shit, it's a brute. Hell yes. And he's got just the normal, like the Halo, it'd been like the Halo 2 style brute in a way, with a big ass hammer. Yeah. It wasn't a gravity hammer, but it was his like big, like, I don't know, like it's just a weird shaped, like kind of four-sided
like mallet, but like
in a way
long.
It's like four-sided kind of sort of hammer thing. And Chief and him kind of have it out. And he has a little sliding moment where he slides in, he grabs a gun, and he tells Cortana, I need a weapon. You know, like you get that line too, which was pretty cool. And he, you know,
then she says, I don't think that's gonna help.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna help. And there's like a DRM like laying down there, or DMR laying down by his feet, and you know, he starts to do what he can do. And it didn't matter. The brute picks up the artifact because they have, since this point, they have lost it off the warthog, and teleports up into the ship they came in on, and that ship goes up to a mega ship and gets ready to take off. And
the coolest part, though, you skipped over.
Well, I didn't skip over it. I just wanted to talk about how they did steal the artifact at that part of the show. But Kai gets into a bit of a like mess. Like she's I don't know, like
she's like having an emotional breakdown. Like,
yeah, like her eyes kind of roll in the back of her head a little bit, and like her armor is, you know, beeping very, very loud, and you can tell her armor's shot. and they can see all this going on. And Chief is driving the Warthog, and he says, I can't let her die. He's like, take the wheel. And he jumps onto the hood of the Warthog, and Riz or Vanek, I don't remember who jumps over and takes the wheel, but Halsey is yelling, John, stick to the mission, stick to the mission. He's like, I can't let her die. And like, he jumps off the Warthog, like into this giant cavern, and he lands on a Banshee. He's about to hijack a Banshee. Like, I totally felt like he was going to hijack a Banshee. It would have been really, really cool, but he still does a really cool thing where he basically like gets underneath the Banshee and he grabs the wing and he like controls the thing where it pulls it to the ground, and like he aims it right into a Phantom, and they blow the Phantom up that's laying waste to Amanda's ship. Amanda. Miranda. Sorry, I said her name wrong. Miranda's ship. And Keyes is down there. Everybody is going to die, but Chief saves them all in that moment, blows that Phantom up with the Banshee, like kamikaze style. And you see like a half Banshee, like he has no legs. He's like crawling like
the Jackal.
That's right. I said Banshee again. The Jackal. Yes. The Jackal is kind of
that
half crawling, cool. Like half his bottom half is gone.
Waist down was missing. Like you just saw his spine.
It's pretty gruesome.
Like this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want. That's the Halo that I want to see every episode as much as possible.
Yes.
Not 10 minutes in a 50 minute episode.
Yeah, because that scene was maybe a 10-minute, ending of the episode. It was very Halo. Mm-hmm. So what we saw in episode 1, just only about half as much of it in this. I feel like episode 1 had way more action between the beginning and the ending of it, because we got to see him like take off in the ship and whatnot. And there was some action there too, but in the first episode, but this one kind of saved it all for the ending. I really liked it. It was great. It was finally like, okay, we're getting somewhere. We have a war on our hands, and it felt like Halo, tons of explosions and just lots of killing, like just a lot of taking grunts out. A lot of Halo. It was really cool. Yeah, like he's, with the grunt driving the Warthog, and Chief jumps up on the hood and he's like, mind if I drive? And like he just
kicks him out.
It was just fun. Like it was like, okay, here we go. This is what we're talking about. Way to go. Finally. So they did finally give us something we've been waiting for. It just came clear at the end. But they do have to throw in the one little tidbit, and we'll see what happens. Well, he does beat the holy living shit. He saves Kai, obviously, but he beats the holy living shit out of an elite. Full on melee, like he just throws down the weapon he has. He had a plasma pistol, and he just starts punching the shit out of the elite. His hands covered in blood, his mask's covered in blood, or his helmet, I guess. And he saves Kai, and she's trying to tell him to stop because he just keeps punching like crazy. And then it goes up into the ship after the artifact has been stolen. And you see Mackie say, make it look good. And then all of a sudden, like this thing like shoots out of their ship onto the ground. And we both looked at each other like, make it look good.
Make it look good. What?
And then we find out she is in the pod that shoots to the ground. And she gets out of it and she pretends to be all like damsel in distress. Oh my gosh. And then she passes out. Air quotes, because she did not pass out. Faking it all, clearly. That's what our son was like. He's like, faker. I'm like, yeah. She's trying to infiltrate and do something terrible. So now Chief and her are going to, they have met because he walked up to her and saw her, because Cortana was like, human life form detected. And he walks up and there she is. So that's where the episode ends.
Yep.
She's there. Chief's kind of like, okay. And there we go. Now they don't have the artifact. The big one. We do have the small one still. They didn't steal both of them, but we'll see what happens. Cause sounds like both of them have to come together to be able to like locate Halo. Cause I still think it's a beacon of some kind.
Yeah.
You turn it on. So too. It's going to take you to
It's going to take you or show you where the Halo is. It's
going to give you a coordinate or
something. Because why else would the Covenant be looking for it?
Yeah.
Like, because that's what they're looking for.
Why else has there been 3 episodes with nothing about just artifact? So overall, what'd you think of this episode?
Better.
Better than better than one?
No.
Okay, not yet. Okay,
No.
same.
Yeah. Good. I mean, better, but not great. Like there was still way too much unnecessary story that we didn't need. Way too many flashbacks of information that, again, we don't really need. Like, and then the saving grace was the 10 minutes of Halo at the end. Like the 10 minutes of Halo. Like that's what I felt like I got.
Yeah, we did kind of just get a 10-minute Halo episode out of this one, but at least we got
something, right?
We got 10 minutes of it. Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't just a whole hour of somebody talking about this damn artifact.
Yeah, and they still got to stop taking the helmets off. It's fucking stupid.
Yes, they got done fighting, and he sees that it's human life form or whatever, and he takes his helmet off.
Yeah,
I'm like, you're so stupid. Why are you taking your helmet
off?
Put it on.
It's like he's like, hey, just shoot me in the head, guys. Like, I mean, that's,
Also, I don't know about you, but I didn't necessarily need to see him through the helmet, like while he was fighting and stuff. Like they showed his face inside the helmet.
They did the Iron Man thing though. They did the right one.
Yes.
The less hated one of mine.
But as Master Chief, I don't need to see that.
You know what okay, here's the thing that I tell myself. I would prefer that over him taking his helmet off all the time.
Yes, I would too.
And I think they didn't overdo it. I think they only showed him in the helmet when he was killing the elite barehanded, which was just like a visceral thing, like just to see how pissed he was. And like 2 other times. That was it. And they did like 2 or 3 first person views where you see him shooting everything, which was cool too. So I'm okay with them showing him in the helmet like that. Definitely more than I am him pulling the helmet off all the damn time. And I would rather them lean that way instead of him pulling the helmet off all the time. So if they have to meet in the middle as a fan, like stop taking your helmet off, show us inside the helmet. That's fine, but only an occasion. We don't need to see it all the time. But I agree that we don't need it.
No, like they need to take notes from the Mandalorian. Like you got to see his cool badass outfit all the time because he kept his helmet on.
And here's the one thing, like, I guess I want to say at the end of this about Pedro Pascal plays the Mandalorian. He's a huge actor now. Like he was in Game of Thrones and he's going to be in the Last of Us show. And he was in Wonder Woman, the second one. He's a massive actor. Everybody knows who he is.
And he still didn't show his face.
And he leaves the helmet on.
See, I knew where you were going.
That's exactly. And you know what? Like, Pablo, or I forget his name, who plays Master Chief. Forgive me, but I can't remember his name. Pablo Schreiber, I think it is.
It's something like that.
He's a no-name actor that can become a great actor, but take a note, people. We have main actors who are like, leave the helmet on. Look at Tony Stark or Robert Downey Jr. Like, just CG me it. I don't care. I'll do the voice thing. Just CG me is the thing. I don't care. I don't need to be seen all the time as my face acting. No,
which is good for the story. Like
this character especially.
And he's supposed to be. He never takes his helmet off. You never see his face.
And I get why they did it. I understand it. You have to have that bit of the aspect going on. But
a bit.
That's
not the entire series.
That's why I keep saying the whole podcast, the whole limited series we're doing for this. It's just a little bit. We don't need a lot of him taking the helmet off. Look, helmet's right there on my shirt. His helmet's on.
Right here. It's on.
Leave it on, man. Like, we don't need it taken off. And every action figure back here behind me, helmet's on. And that's it. Like, I would love for them to just never take his helmet off again and just do the little cuts inside of his helmet. And that's it.
Okay.
Because
for that.
Yeah, because I don't need to know that he's a good actor. Because honestly, if you can emote and act through a suit with no face, you're killing it. You're killing it. Like, you know what you're doing. And Pedro Pascal could do that. Tony Stark did that. They did have the option where it went in to sit inside his helmet. You saw him too, but just him voice acting the character.
Yeah.
He wasn't in a suit acting most of the time. There was a lot of CG going on in those movies. And I'm sure there's way more examples out there that I could use, but I am I'm with you. I agree. I don't think they need to keep cutting in and out and showing him. I would be completely happy if they never had showed his face at all.
Yeah.
I think he's a good Master Chief. I think he fits, the voice is actually okay. It's not terrible or nothing. I think he knows how to act, but I think his agent was too good and was like, hey,
we have to show his face.
He's going to do this and you guys love him and he's going to be awesome, but he has to have at least 38.75 minutes of screen time with his face
every episode.
Oh. That's kind of what I feel like.
So
I was happier with this episode as well. It's my number 2 episode now. Number 1 is still number 1. So they started off great. They went to the shitter and now they're coming back. So let's hope that the end of this episode was that ramping up, just up the roller coaster. The roller coaster still going up. And then at the end of the season, I want to see I want my arms up. Woo! You know what I mean? Like I want to be enjoying the ride.
Do it again.
Exactly. Can't wait to do that whole thing again because the ride was worth it. Knowing that the next time I ride that ride, it's probably going to be even better because you don't have to do all of this slow down and pay attention to this and all this dialogue and whatnot. So yes, they did a much better job. It felt like Halo. I was into it. I was getting some chill moments and stuff, actual goosebump stuff. I was like, hell yes, Banshees. You jumping on that Banshee? I'm like, hell yeah. I was really, really happy with the whole way they did the war at the end. It was like, okay, we're getting some Covenant UNSC war. I'm loving it. Let's do more of this. Yep. So that's the plan. That's the hope. We'll see what happens. However, I will say that I feel like that won't happen in the next episode because now Mackie and Chief are together.
Yep.
So it's going to be a lot of talky.
That's what I think too.
We now are missing an artifact. So it's got to be how do we find the artifact? Where could they have gone? And you were abducted by them. You should know where they were going. Can you give us any information? And, blah, 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 blah. And we'll see where it goes from there. But
How many episodes are left?
This was 5 and there's 9. So we got 4 to go.
At least the next 2 are going to be nothing but them talky
for at least the next 1. Hopefully they get out of whatever the deal is and she steals the thing, and because she's going to steal the other artifact. She's going to take it. She's somehow going to end up back with her Banshee people. And Banshee. I keep doing that, guys. Sorry, I got Banshees on the brain, I guess. Back with her elites and brutes, and they're gonna make their way to a Halo because
they have to.
If they follow the games, the elites were already on the Halo when Chief's Pelican crashed. They were already there.
Yeah.
They had already been digging for however long, so they got to get to that quickly, or they're just gonna have to skip the fact that the elites had been there for longer and done all these scouting trips to the Halo trying to figure out how to activate it. Because I swear I'm going to be so pissed if it all ends on episode 9 and they make it to the Halo at episode 9. I'm going to be like, what the fuck?
Yeah. You're like, what the hell?
So we'll see what happens, but that's my thing. I think the next one's going to be a nothing but talky episode.
I do too.
And then I think 7, 8, and 9 have the potential to have some good action in them, as long as next episode she steals the artifact and gets it back to her crew, and then it's going to be on the chase is on.
Okay,
we'll see. I'm hoping.
I hope you're right. I mean, we're both prepared for at least 7 to be nothing but talking.
Yes So prepare for us to come 6, back.
I'm sorry.
Or be 6. So yeah, be prepared for us to come back on that episode of the podcast and go, well, it went to shit again, guys. For us anyway. Yeah. So all right. Well, that's it for this limited series podcast. This episode 5 Halo series. Let us know what you guys think of the show so far. Appreciate all the views. We've had some really great kick up on these episodes on YouTube and on the podcast as well. So we really appreciate you guys tuning in and listening and watching. It's been really fun doing them, and we'll continue to keep doing them because why not? We got to finish it, right?
That's right.
We got to finish this.
I'm already this far in.
Yeah, she's just stuck now. There's no other way. All right, guys. Well, that is it for this one again, and we will see you back next week for episode 6. Until then, stay loud.